I never imagined a single text message could shatter 23 years of marriage. But that Thursday night, standing in my own kitchen with the lingering heat of the oven still on my skin, I finally understood, betrayal is never a thunderclap. It's a slow-moving serpent. By the time you feel its fangs, it has already sunk through to your marrow, and you've been unknowingly holding the wound closed all along. My name is Melwyn Pratt. I am 47 years old, mother of two, a wife who poured half her life into a marriage that I believed was unbreakable. I lived in that grey-blue colonial house in suburban Michigan, tending a fairy tale I thought was solid as stone, until that phone lit up, until that woman stepped onto my porch in her heels and crushed the last shred of my self-deceiving dignity. This is my story. When the whole world collapsed behind me like a cheap stage set, I did not scream, I did not kneel, I did not even blink. I stood amid the rubble, picked up every blooded shard, and forged them into a blade sharp enough to pierce every lie. It happened while I was wiping down the kitchen counter. Thursday nights always carried that false peace, the mingled scent of roasting chicken and lemon cleaner, like some cheap aromatherapy that promised all was well. I wiped slowly, deliberately, my fingers tracing the granite grooves through the cloth, as if sheer concentration could keep life from splitting open and flooding in with the truth. From upstairs came the steady rush of the shower. Tayleyes, as always, took his long hot bath after work, a ritual he'd kept for 23 years. He said it washed away the day's fatigue. Now I know he was trying to wash away far more than that. I had just set the last plate in the drying rack, the porcelain chiming softly, when his phone, which he'd left on the granite island, gave a quiet buzz. The screen lit up. Like a single black eye, opening in the dimness. In that near dark, the white glow cut through the air like a blade. One line of text, last night meant everything to me. My hand froze mid-motion, the cloth slipped from my fingers and hung there, dangling like a dead fish. My eyes locked onto those black letters from an unknown number. My heart didn't race at first, it simply stopped, gripped by an icy hand, then slammed back against my ribs twice, as if finally realizing, you are looking at something you were never meant to see. I had never snooped through his phone. Never. In 23 years, I could count on one hand the times I'd even touched it. But in that moment, something inside me didn't just crack, it shattered. Like a porcelain plate struck by a hammer, every fault line splitting at once, shards flying into the softest parts of my chest. I picked up his phone, pressed my thumb to the screen, and the unlock code flashed. Our wedding anniversary. Pathetically simple. 6 months of sneaking around, and he couldn't even be bothered to change the passcode. Maybe he never thought I'd look. Maybe he didn't care. Maybe, deep down, he wanted to be caught. I opened the chat. One glance was enough, a few lines of conversation, each one a scalpel carving away another piece of my feelings for this man. I understood everything, their first meeting, their first time alone, the first moment they crossed the line. The things he said to her, he had never said to me. The woman he described to her was a stranger, dull, slow, a wife reduced to chores and wrinkles. Before reason could intervene, my fingers typed a reply on their own. That hand no longer felt like mine. It had its own resentment, its own resolve. Come over. She's gone. I hit send. The instant my fingertip touched the screen, a chill shot up my wrist and spine, like ice water poured from the crown of my head. Regret flooded in, but it was too late. The message was delivered, 2 grey checkmarks like mocking eyes. I placed the phone back exactly where he'd left it, not a millimeter off. I stood still, my ears filled with the sounds of the house, the shower still running upstairs, the second hand of the old wall clock hacking away at time, the refrigerator humming low and steady like a great oblivious beast. I counted the minutes. 12. Then I sat on a bar stool, hands folded between my knees, spine straight. In the black window glass, I saw a stranger's face, calm, eyes deep as ocean water, with no tears, no panic, only something slowly hardening into steel. My mind churned. Who is she? How long has this been going on? Every time he said working late, or business trip, or too tired, going to bed, was he with her? But my eyes were dry. Not a single tear. I didn't cry, didn't run upstairs to confront him, didn't smash the showerhead over his head. I just sat, like a cat in the dark, waiting for the prey to walk into the trap. The doorbell rang. Sharp as a razor splitting the front door, slicing the house in two. I smoothed my sweater, walked to the front door, and gripped the cold metal handle. It reminded me of the first time he held my hand, that same cold, metallic feel. I'd thought it was nerves. Now I knew, the cold had always been there. Morwenna Hedon stood on the stoop. The porch light gave her a soft halo, but even in that dim glow I could see every detail. Her tailored camel coat, cinched at the waist to show off her figure, a silk scarf at her throat, her lips painted a perfect dusty rose. She hadn't come on a whim. She'd dressed for this, put on perfume, probably touched up her lipstick in the car mirror. She'd rehearsed this moment, just not the version where I was home. The moment she saw me, the color drained from her face like a plug had been pulled. Her lips parted, and her first words came out on instinct. Where's Tail Eyes? The air turned to glass, thin, brittle, one wrong word and it would shatter. I stepped aside, my voice flat as still water. Come in. She hesitated. Less than a second, but I caught it. A slight shift of her ankle, a backward lean, like one foot already on a trap's trigger. But she came. She crossed the threshold, her heels clicking on my hardwood floor, tap, 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 each step like a nail in a coffin. And with her came that expensive floral perfume, white flowers and musk, cloying enough to turn my stomach. I closed the door softly. The lock clicked into place, like a cage's gate shutting. We stood in the living room, neither of us sitting, me by the window, her by the sofa, the old copper-colored rug between us. The silence was a wet blanket over the whole house, heavy enough to choke on. The shower upstairs cut off. Footsteps on the bathroom floor, then the familiar rhythm of someone descending the stairs. 23 years of that same creak. He could do it blindfolded. Tail Eyes appeared at the turn of the landing, his hair still wet and plastered to his forehead, a grey t-shirt and black sweatpants, his old slippers. He reached the landing and his gaze swept the room, me standing, Morwenna standing, the front door closed behind me. His feet stuck to the floor. He stopped dead, like someone hit pause. His eyes darted between us for a beat, and then his face arranged itself into a carefully polished expression of shock. A prop polished so many times it fit like a glove, even the arch of his eyebrows rehearse. Melwyn, he said in a low voice, drawing out the syllables, as if they were squeezed from his chest in pain. I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed on Morwenna. She was looking at him too. They exchanged a glance more naked than any words, hers asking, "Did you screw up?" his replying, "Why did you come?" They didn't scramble for excuses. They were too quiet, and that quiet chilled me. Because it could only mean one thing: they'd rehearsed this. They'd imagined every possible way I could find out, even the worst-case scenario. The cold hit me a second time, sharper than before. I finally saw it. This was never an accident. This was a web they'd been spinning above my head for 6 months, and I'd been living under it, cooking for the spider, ironing its clothes, making its bed, even cleaning the dust off its threads. Tail Eyes came down the last few steps, his pace quicker now, more flustered. He stood next to Morwenna, rubbing his palms against his pants seams, and opened his mouth. "This isn't what you think." Morwenna touched the necklace at her throat, a gesture too deliberate, as if the pearls could steady her voice. She cleared her throat and tried to sound composed. Melwyn, we're all adults here. Let's sit down and talk this through. I studied them. They stood apart, a calculated distance, but it was fake. The way they angled their bodies, the tilt of their heads, even their breathing, all leaned toward each other. Like two plants whose roots had already tangled underground, pretending above ground to be strangers. My voice was soft, almost warm. That warmth made both their eyelashes twitch. How long, I said slowly, each word distinct, were you both waiting for me to step aside? The sentence hung in the air, and even the dust seemed to freeze. Taylais shuffled his feet, the carpet making a dull scrape. Morwenna's lips pressed into a thin white line. They both went mute, like two birds with their throats squeezed. The old grandfather clock in the corner ticked on, each second a slap to their faces. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My silence was more devastating than any scream. The bathroom's lingering steam still drifted in the air, mingling with the scent of our uneaten dinner, roast chicken, potatoes, the faint oily warmth from the oven. All the smells that had once soothed me now mixed with Morwenna's expensive perfume into something nauseating. The whole house felt coated in a dirty film. Everything I'd treasured was wrapped in it, showing its rotten core. On the wall, our family photos still hung, him with his arm around me at some sunny beach, grinning with perfect teeth. On the shelves, the kids' trophies and crafts from over the years, lopsided clay pencil holders, faded crayon drawings, each one soaked in my time. This house held half my life's work, and now I stood in my own living room like an intruder. Morwenna took a breath, about to speak again, probably to say it's all a misunderstanding, or you've got it wrong, or we're just friends. I raised my hand gently, fingers upright like a door closing, not aggressive, not threatening, just a quiet, undeniable stop. His phone lit up while he was showering. I looked at her, my tone as flat as a grocery list. And here you are. Taylais ran his fingers through his wet hair, scratching his scalp. Melwyn, please, don't make this any harder than it already is. Don't make a scene. I turned my gaze to him at last. Those blue eyes, I'd seen candlelight reflected in them when he proposed, tears of joy when our children were born, the warmth of a raised glass on every anniversary. I'd thought those eyes held only me. Now they held fear, calculation, a frantic estimate of how much he could still salvage. I'm not the one making this hard, Taylais. I said each word slowly. I'm just not going to cover for your dignity anymore. From now on, the mess you make, you clean up yourself. That sentence hovered like a raised blade, not yet falling, but everyone knew it would. Morwenna's eyes kept flicking toward the front door. Her heels had already turned slightly, her weight shifting. She wanted to run. This confrontation wasn't going the way she'd planned. She hadn't found a sobbing, broken-down wife. She'd found a hunter, calm in the dark, holding all the cards. She turned and headed for the door, her coat flaring with the hurry. Her composure was cracking. As she passed the side table, something slipped from her coat pocket, a small white rectangle, fluttering to the floor like a forgotten scrap. She didn't notice. She pulled the door open, her heels tapping quickly across the porch, and vanished into the night without even a goodbye. The door closed behind her. Click. I bent and picked up the envelope. White, A6, crisp paper. I tore it open and slid out a printed document, still faintly warm from the printer's ink. It bore the address of a lakeside apartment, floor plans, property details. The listed owner was a company name I'd never heard of, a jumble of letters, a shell with no website, no phone number, no trace of any legitimate business. Its only purpose was to launder money he'd stolen from me into a safe haven for their secret nights. My fingers clenched the paper. Its edge bit into my palm, a sharp sting like a needle piercing numb skin, letting the truth drip out one drop at a time. The apartment was a luxury waterfront unit in a gated community 2 hours from our suburban home. Guard gate, boat slips, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the sunset over the lake. Owned by that shell company, paid for from 3 different accounts, each transaction dodging our joint account scrutiny, each disguised as business expenses or project advances. I turned the paper over. On the back, in the corner, a faint handwritten note in blue ink. Someone's round, deliberate script, like carefully chosen jewelry. Move-in date, 6 months ago. 6 whole months. My knuckles whitened, the paper trembled in my grip. 6 months. 180 nights. Countless times he'd worked late, countless weekend business trips, countless cold rejections and hollow excuses, and I had made excuses for him. I told myself not to worry, not to pry, to trust him, to give him space. I explained him to the kids when he missed dinners, birthdays, promises he never kept. And through all those months, I cooked for him, washed his clothes, ironed every wrinkle from his collars, carried every domestic burden on my shoulders, loving a man who had built an entire parallel life with another woman where I couldn't see. He had a spare toothbrush in that apartment. Slippers waiting for him. He lived 2 lives, and I got the counterfeit. I didn't cry. I didn't tear the paper and throw it in his face. I just laid it gently on the coffee table, like a letter that no longer needed to be opened. My spine stayed straight, the ache in my knuckles spread up my forearms, but I didn't stoop, didn't slump, didn't let go of the evidence. From upstairs came the sound of a faucet turning off. He was dressing now, adjusting his expression in the mirror, crafting a fresh set of lies to come down and patch up the wreckage in the living room. He would probably kneel. Probably cry. Probably recite the lines he'd rehearsed 100 times. I was confused. I only love you, give me one more chance. I felt no tears, no rage. The sea of trust and love and hope that had once filled my chest was now a sheet of ice. When you finally realize you've been living in a lie, when you understand that all your warmth went into a piece of rotten wood, when you look back at all the doubts you swallowed, you stop being angry. You just go cold. Cold to the bone. Cold enough to hear your own heartbeat, each thud like a hammer into frozen ground, precise and deadly. I walked to the kitchen and pulled open the bottom drawer. It was shallow, stuffed with old receipts, expired coupons, and dead remote batteries. I reached to the back, my fingers probing the gap between the wood and the drawer bottom, until they found something hard and flat. A small encrypted USB drive I'd hidden years ago. Silver gray, with a faded leather cord. I held it for a few seconds. Outside, the night was thick. The desk lamp cast my long shadow across the kitchen tiles. I'd noticed the discrepancies years ago. Our joint account never quite adding up, month-end numbers always falling short of his reported income. I'd checked once, seen a few vaguely labeled transfers, and my heart had jumped. Then I'd closed the page. I told myself I was overthinking. He was so busy, so tired, he couldn't possibly be fabricating another life. I told myself 23 years of marriage was a fortress, a few cracks wouldn't bring it down. I was wrong. So wrong. That wall had been hollowed out from the inside, leaving only a thin shell, and every day I'd dusted and mopped and ironed and smiled inside that shell, pretending it was whole. I hadn't delayed its collapse. I'd just propped it up a few extra years, giving them more time to sink their roots deeper. I plugged the USB into my laptop. The machine gave a low hum, like a groan from deep in its throat, and the screen lit up. I opened the hidden folder, the transfer screenshots I'd studied over and over, the expense receipts disguised as business, the weekend location logs that matched Mowena's social media posts to the hour, the blurry dashcam images of his car entering that gated lakeside community night after night. They were all there, lined up like silent witnesses, waiting for me. I sorted them, rearranged by date. Every night of those 6 months, every trajectory, every dollar leaving our accounts, it all spread out before me like a complete map. And the map's destination was always the same person. I took a breath. My fingers were steady on the keyboard. The stairs creaked. I closed the laptop gently, cleared my browsing history, pulled out the USB, and slipped it into my apron pocket. I turned toward the stairs, my face calm as if I'd just been gazing out the window at nothing. He came down. His hair was dry now, combed back neatly, even a bit of product in it. His body was stiff, like a puppet on strings, every step careful and hesitant. On his face was a carefully measured expression of remorse, not too light to seem insincere, not too heavy to seem theatrical. He'd practiced it in the mirror upstairs. He was using it now to cover his panic. Melwyn. He stopped 2 feet from me, voice low and gravelly, eyes downcast, chin tucked, a perfect penitent pose. I know I messed up. I really messed up. I was confused, I let some bad thoughts get the better of me. It was a mistake, a small one, a fixable one. Just the one time, I swear. I tilted my head. I looked at him for a long moment. This face I'd kissed, relied on, reached for in the dark. Now it was 2 feet away, but it felt like a frozen lake between us. When I spoke, my voice wasn't loud, but every word landed like a nail in wood. A one-time mistake that lasted 6 months. His face went white. Beneath the practiced remorse, real panic surged up, uncontrolled, corpse pale. His rehearsed lines stuck in his throat like a fishbone. He opened his mouth, made a few strangled noises, trying to piece together the fragments of his lies, but they came out jumbled. He sounded like a broken recorder cycling through nonsense syllables. Finally he gave up, his lips pressed tight, no more excuses left. How did you? I found the envelope she dropped. I gestured toward the coffee table, my eyes never leaving his. Lakeside apartment. Shell company. Every dollar you funneled out as business expenses went into that place. Down payment, renovations, property fees. You were using our money to support her while I folded your clothes, took your dry cleaning, paid the utilities, saved for the kids' college. You used my labor to buy her carpets, her windows, her Lakeview patio furniture. Right under my nose, you built an entire separate life. Real fear crawled up from the deepest corner of his eyes. No more acting, this was naked, from scalp to toes. He stepped forward, reaching for my wrist, his hand was shaking, fingers trembling like dead twigs, but I sidestepped, my heel tapping back on the floor, pulling myself out of reach. His hand grasped empty air, hung there for a moment, then dropped uselessly to his side. Let me explain. His voice spiked, then he forced it back down to a whisper, like a pot about to boil over. Please. It's not what you think. Morwenna is just a colleague. She was lonely, I felt sorry for her, and then I lost control. But I love you, only you. This family is everything to me. You are my home. I let out a low laugh, cold, so cold it surprised me, like a chunk of ice dropping and shattering on marble. His shoulders flinched. You love the life I managed for you. I held his gaze, my voice steady, each word building a wall he couldn't climb. You love a kitchen that had dinner waiting. A bed that was made. A wife who was always understanding enough never to ask where you went after work. You never loved me enough to show me who you really are. I pulled out my phone. As the screen lit up, a long list of backed up messages scrolled down. Late-night texts to her, sweet nothings he'd never said to me. Excuses he'd given me, projects wrapping up, client dinner ran late, phones dying, talk tomorrow, each one highlighted with dates and times. And from the cloud, I'd recovered the chats he thought he'd deleted, those heated exchanges sent after midnight, words he believed no one would ever see. They crawled across the screen like black ants. I found more than just the apartment receipt. I swiped through the records, letting him watch. Every date you met. Every dollar that disappeared from our joint account. Every goodnight you deleted but the cloud kept for you. Tail eyes, you stole more than my marriage. You stole my trust in the word truth. His shoulders crumbled. Like a wall whose last pillar had been knocked out, he caved. The dust hadn't even settled and he was already unsteady. His knees buckled slightly, as if he might drop to the floor, but he gritted his teeth and held himself up. He stood frozen, hands hanging at his sides, fingers curling and uncurling like drowning hands grasping at nothing. I sorted the evidence right in front of him, timelines, totals, location maps, screenshots, numbered, archived, backed up, as neat as a dissected corpse with every organ in its place. What do you want? His voice was completely wrecked, hoarse, hollow, like a bird that had broken its wings at the bottom of a dry well, unable to fly, barely able to flutter. I lifted my eyes and looked straight into his, to the deepest part of his pupils. No tears, no hatred, nothing soft he could crawl into and beg. What I'm going to do, I said, my voice rising from my chest like an arrow that had been underwater too long, finally breaking the surface and aiming for the mark, is what you and Morwenna plotted for 6 months, but never had the nerve to carry out. I paused. In that 1 second, the whole living room's silence was tightening the noose. End this. Completely. Cleanly. Before he could speak, my phone buzzed again. Another text from that same unknown number, the one that had lit up his phone hours earlier. Preview, did she take the bait? Soon this house will be ours. Ice ran through me. This wasn't a confession of passion, it was a celebration. In that instant I understood, this was never a random affair. It was a calculated conspiracy. They had planned to take my home, my marriage, my life. And in that same moment, I made a promise to myself, I would never let them succeed. Tailey's eyes darted to my screen, the last trace of color drained from his face. He saw the message, and he understood its meaning. Morwenna had never been content with secret rendezvous and a hidden apartment. She wanted my life, my house, 23 years of my labor, and he had enabled it, even pushed it forward. Delete that. His voice turned sharp, frantic, the remorse mask crumbled, revealing his selfish cowardice. Melwyn, delete it now. You have no idea what's really going on. I locked the screen, calm and steady. I see clearly. You two were never just a fling. You were a long con. That's not true. He raised his voice, aggressive, stepping forward. The mild-mannered husband mask was gone. She forced me. She threatened to destroy my career. I had no choice but to go along. Pathetic. My husband of 23 years, a man who navigated boardroom battles and corporate crises with ice-cold composure, was now claiming he'd been bullied by a co-worker. No one could force him unless he wanted it, unless his greed gave consent. I looked him in the eyes, unblinking. You had 6 months to walk away. 6 months to tell me the truth. 6 months to choose your family. But you didn't. You built one lie on top of another, and you helped her swallow everything I had. He stiffened, jaw clenched, no more words. The living room fell into a suffocating silence, broken only by the old grandfather clock. The one we'd bought for our 10th anniversary, a witness to what we thought was eternal, now counting down the absurdity of this betrayal. I turned toward the front window and looked out at the dark suburban street. The whole neighborhood was peaceful, lights off, quiet. No one knew about the implosion happening inside this house. For 23 years, I had given everything to this family, never knowing that the man beside me had been quietly dismantling it all. What do you really want? His voice cracked, defeated and bargaining. Money. The house. I'll give it all to you. Just don't expose this. Don't ruin my career. I turned back slowly, my resolve frozen solid. I don't want your handouts. I want back everything you stole, the nights I waited up, the meals I cooked alone, the trust one wasted, the half of my life you gave away to a stranger. His pupils shrank. He'd expected hysterics, tears, pleading, negotiation, never this icy clarity, this refusal to yield, this readiness to tear down the perfect illusion he and his accomplice had built. That night, I didn't sleep. Tailey's retreated to the master bedroom, pacing like a caged beast, terrified of what was coming. I stayed at the kitchen table in the dark, finalizing every piece of evidence. I opened the encrypted drive and double-checked every transaction, every timestamp, every location log. I restored deleted chats, excuses, meeting records, cross-referenced each with Morwenna's social media posts, her travel patterns. Every post of hers matched one of his fake business trips or late nights. Perfect alignment. The evidence piled up, incontrovertible. This 6-month affair was no fleeting passion, it was a carefully orchestrated plot. Morwenna had infiltrated his work, alienated him from his family, exploited his desires, siphoned our joint assets, all to build her own stolen perfect life. And what I uncovered cut even deeper. The shell company that owned the lake apartment wasn't just a love nest. Over 4 months, Tailey's had channeled his bonuses, investment returns, even our joint savings into that anonymous account, disguised as business expenses, to buy her property, luxury goods, a new car. He had been stripping our family's wealth to fund the woman scheming to replace me. He had already made sure I'd be left with nothing. I had worried about the kids' tuition, home repairs, retirement, pinching pennies to plan for our future, while he secretly emptied our coffers to spoil an outsider plotting against our marriage. Grief faded, replaced by a sharp, cold fury. Not a wild rage, a calm, calculated wrath born of trampled trust and wasted devotion. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. The same number, no more pretense, just raw arrogance. Don't cling to a dead marriage. Tailey's doesn't love you anymore, he's mine. Leave quietly before you embarrass yourself. I read every word and memoized her smugness. She assumed I was just a weak housewife, dependent and broken, who would crumble and beg and slink away, leaving her to take everything without a fight. I typed back, steady. Let's see who ends up embarrassed. I locked the screen and kept working. By dawn, I had compiled a complete, time-stamped, unassailable chain of evidence, financial fraud, asset transfers, proof of infidelity, location corroboration, recovered communications, and the entire plan to steal marital property. I backed it up 3 ways: USB, private cloud, offline secure computer, leaving no way for Tailey's to destroy or alter anything. I held all the cards. The first light of morning crept in. Upstairs, a door opened. Tailey's came down, haggard, eyes bloodshot, his usual polished look completely gone. He hadn't slept either, he'd been pacing, terrified of my retaliation. When he saw me fully dressed, seated at the table, calm and untired, he froze like he'd seen a ghost. You didn't sleep. His voice was dry and cracked. I nodded, closing the laptop, hands folded on the table. I did what needed to be done. What? He stepped closer, suspicion in his eyes. What did you do last night? I rose slowly and met his panicked gaze, I collected every shred of evidence. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every secret meeting, and the entire plan you had to replace me. He turned ashen. Are you suing me? I'm defending my rights. My tone was steady. I'm keeping what is mine, what you tried to steal and give away. Panic overtook him. He lunged and grabbed my arm, hard enough to bruise, his last pretense of composure shattered. Stop. Please. Don't blow this up. I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation, my family. Morwenna will be ruined too. Do you really want to destroy 2 lives out of spite? I looked down at his grip, then up at his terrified face. You destroyed our marriage 6 months ago. You eroded my trust long before that. Day by day, you hollowed out our foundation. Don't play the victim now, you brought this on yourself. I pulled my arm free and stepped back, drawing a clear line. Taylor stumbled, collapsing into himself, raking his hands through his messy hair. What do you want? I'll give you everything, the house, custody, all the savings, just let me sign it over. Just keep this quiet. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. He thought he could buy back my heart, my decades of devotion, my loyalty, with the very money he'd stolen. I don't want your hush money. My voice was ice. I want justice. You and Morwenna dismantled my life piece by piece. Now it's time for your perfect illusion to shatter. Before he could plead further, the doorbell rang, shrill, insistent, cutting the morning silence. Taylor stiffened, eyes wide with terror. Who is that? Who did you call? I didn't answer. I walked to the door and opened it. On the step stood 2 people. A senior family law attorney specializing in high net worth divorces and financial fraud, sharp and relentless, and the state's top forensic accountant, expert in tracing hidden marital assets and corporate dark money. Both carried formal folders and tablets, their expressions professional and severe. The documents were complete. Every procedure was in order. This was a formal legal pursuit. Taylor saw them and his legs nearly gave out. He knew, in that instant, that there was no escape, his lies, his cover-ups, his hopes, all gone. Mr. Pratt, the attorney said, stepping inside, we are instructed by Melwyn Pratt to initiate a full audit of marital assets, financial fraud investigation, and divorce proceedings, including examination of all transactions linked to your shell company. The accountant added, flat and objective, we've already identified extensive illegal transfers of marital assets, off-book transactions, and hidden acquisitions over the past 6 months. We will complete a comprehensive forensic audit today. Taylor gasped, breath short and ragged. You can't do this. This is my private life. You forfeited privacy when you misappropriated marital funds and conspired to defraud your spouse. The attorney cut him off. Ms. Pratt has complete evidence of premeditated infidelity and financial fraud. This process is fully legal. As Taylor teetered on the edge of collapse, my phone buzzed again. Not a text from Morwenna. An urgent official email from his company's board, auto-forwarded to my private account via the secure cloud backup I'd set up years ago. The subject line was devastating, urgent, workplace conduct investigation, formally opened. Morwenna had struck first. She'd filed a complaint with the company before I'd even started my legal action, claiming Taylor had coerced her, harassed her, used his position to pressure her, twisting their mutual scheme into a one-sided story of a boss abusing a subordinate. She painted herself as the victim, shifting all blame to him. She'd prepared her exit strategy. Her plan was never just to replace me, it was to destroy him, make him dependent on her, and take everything for herself. Taylor caught a glimpse of the email preview over my shoulder. The last hope in his eyes died. He staggered back, hitting the wall, staring in disbelief. She betrayed me too. I watched him, and the last trace of tenderness I'd held for him vanished. You made a mistake from the start. You put your trust in someone whose only goal was to steal your family. That was your undoing. His body slid down the wall until he collapsed on the cold floor, crumpled and broken. Gone was the calm, successful executive, just a wreck of a man, sobbing into his hands. I'm sorry, Mel Wynne. I'm so sorry. He choked out, hollow-eyed. She bewitched me. I was an idiot. I made a terrible mistake. Can you forgive me just this once? 23 years, 2 kids. Are you really going to throw all that away? I looked down at him, feeling nothing, no pity, no empathy, just frozen clarity. You threw it away. Not me. My voice was quiet, but each word cut. It started cracking every night you came home late with a lie. It rotted when you drained our accounts for another woman. It died the moment you plotted with her to take my house, my life, while you waited for me to step aside. The attorney stepped forward, placing a stack of documents before Taylor's eyes. The crisp rustle of paper sounded like a death knell. Mr. Pratt, here are the notice of asset freeze, divorce petition, and financial fraud investigation. Effective today, all marital assets are frozen. No transfers, sales, or concealment of any assets are permitted. All accounts, companies, and properties are subject to judicial review. Each word slammed into him. He stared at the black and white text, hands shaking so badly he couldn't even touch the papers. Frozen. He whispered, ashen. The lake apartment, my savings, my investments, all of it. Everything, the accountant confirmed flatly. All hidden assets, off-book transfers, gifts to third parties, all will be recovered, and fraud charges will be pursued. Taylor's was grey. His career, his image, his secret wealth, his future with Morwenna, all gone. And this was only the beginning. Just then, my phone rang, a call from an unknown number. Morwenna. Taylor's looked up, a flicker of pathetic hope in his eyes. It's her. Answer it. Let her explain. She set me up, she trapped me, it's all her fault. I glanced at the caller ID, smiled coldly, and answered, switching on the recorder. Immediately, Morwenna's voice came through, saccharine and smug. Taylor's. How's it going? Did your wife flip out? I filed the complaint with HR. Just stick to the story that you were confused and I misled you. They'll just give you a slap on the wrist. Then we'll get you divorced, dump that old hag, and we can be together openly. Her voice dripped with triumph. I told you, that woman is so dull and stupid. She's clung to that marriage her whole life. She'd never dare fight back. We'll squeeze her right, and she'll fold. The house, the money, everything, it'll all be ours. The room was silent. Taylor's froze, his last shred of self-deception crumbling. Every word from her phone tore away his fantasy of a passionate affair gone wrong. It had been a setup from the start. I let her rant until she paused, then I spoke, flat and calm, you're going to be disappointed. She went silent for a beat, then panicked. Who is this? Mel Wynne. Why are you answering? Put Taylor's on. He's busy. I said coolly. He's got bigger problems than your little script. Don't get smug, she snapped, dropping the act. I've already filed a complaint, his career is dead. If I push, he'll never work in this industry again. Your marriage, his reputation, all gone. You think you've won? It's mutual destruction. Mutual. I laughed softly. You overestimate yourself. He's ruined because of your greed and his disloyalty. I'll take back what's mine and walk away clean. I paused, then enunciated clearly. and I recorded every word of this call, including your scheme to defraud, collude, and fabricate workplace accusations." The line went dead quiet, then a sharp intake of breath. "You recorded me." Her voice wobbled, all bravado gone. "You set me up. The moment you started scheming, you should have known the ending." I said coldly. "You wanted to ruin him, take everything. Now you pay the price." I hung up, saved the recording, and added it to the evidence folder, the final nail in their conspiracy. Taylor's was white as bone, shivering. He finally saw the truth. He'd been a pawn in her game, used, manipulated, and abandoned. I was so stupid. He buried his face, voice cracking. "I had a good family, a wife who loved me, and I threw it away for a snake. I deserve this." I turned to the attorney. "Proceed as planned." All evidence submitted. Full legal pursuit, no settlement, no compromise. Every stolen asset recovered. No deals. Understood. The attorney nodded. "We'll complete on-site documentation, asset freeze, and filing today. We'll coordinate with the company investigation and court proceedings to maximize your recovery." The accountant added, "We have a complete, closed loop of evidence. No gaps. We win this case 100%. Taylor's collapsed fully, his last energy gone. He had thought he could control everyone, his wife, his family, his mistress. In the end, he was just a fool consumed by desire, destroyed by his own choices. I stood tall and looked out the window. The first rays of sunlight broke through the mist, filling the room with a soft glow that dispelled the long night's chill. 23 years ended. Not with bitterness, with release. I lost a marriage built on lies. They lost their careers, their reputations, their futures. Those who betrayed me ended up destroying themselves. And I would rise from the ashes and live a new, unburdened life. The attorney and accountant left as the morning fully broke. Sunlight streamed through the east-facing windows, casting diamond-shaped patches on the floor. Dust motes spun lazily in the beams. For the first time in that living room, I realized the light was no longer gentle. It was sharp as blades, carving out every shadow. Taylor still sat crumpled against the hallway wall, like an empty shell. He'd been there for nearly 2 hours, spine against the wallpaper, knees bent, arms limp at his sides. His eyes were fixed on some point on the floor, lips moving silently, perhaps praying, perhaps rehearsing some final plea. I left him there. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water and drank it slowly, leaning against the counter. The cool liquid was a grounding reality check. This wasn't a nightmare, not some Thursday night hallucination. The roast chicken grease still clung to the stovetop. I touched the cast iron pan. It was stone cold. A sound from upstairs. I looked up, heard hurried footsteps across the landing, then a pause at the master bedroom. I thought Taylor's might have finally gotten off the floor to change or call someone, but the footsteps started again, toward the stairs. He appeared at the turn, somewhat reassembled, hair slicked back, shirt tucked in, shoes on. But his eyes betrayed him, bloodshot, purple-rimmed, the terrified look of a cornered animal. He came down slowly, holding the railing, as if the steps might give way. He stopped on the third stair from the bottom, not moving forward. The oak dining table sat between us like a boundary that could never be crossed. "I have to go to the office." His voice was barely recognizable. "About that email. I need to explain." I said nothing, just watched him. He was waiting for something, sarcasm, pity, even a warning to stay, but my silence frightened him more. "Melwyn," he took 2 more steps down, "please say something." "Go ahead." I set my glass down, my voice surprisingly steady. "Drive safely." He flinched, as if I'd struck him. He'd expected me to say, "Let me come with you," or, "This will only make it worse," all the patterns he'd known for 23 years. They were gone. He was looking at a woman he'd never really known. He stood there for long seconds, then said nothing, turned, opened the front door and walked out. It closed with a soft click, like the last weak heartbeat of our marriage. I watched from the window as he got into his grey sedan. His hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the lock. He sat in the driver's seat for a long time, head bowed, hands on the wheel. I could picture his tight lips, closed eyes, willing the morning away. Then he drove off. I watched until the car disappeared, then went upstairs to the master bedroom we'd shared for 2 decades. The walk-in closet was a wall of his suits, shirts, ties, color-coordinated and pristine. My side was more cluttered, sweaters, aprons, a few dresses, and cashmere he'd given me last Christmas, tags still on, never worn. I opened the top drawer and took out a manila envelope. Inside, copy of our marriage license, deed, kids' birth certificates, insurance policies, and the handwritten wedding vows from 23 years ago. The paper was yellowed and brittle. It read, "For richer or poorer, in sickness and health, I will stand by you." I stared at it, then folded it and tucked it at the bottom of the folder. My phone buzzed. The attorney. Asset freeze filed, expected completion by 5 p.m. today. All Taylor's personal accounts, company accounts, and shell company accounts are under monitor. Also, we've obtained 17 security video files from the Lake apartment complex. I'll send an encrypted link tonight. I replied, "Good." Then another message, from my financial advisor, Mel Wynn, "Based on the info you provided last night, I've estimated the total marital assets transferred in the last 6 months at roughly $427,500, including $130,000 in stock gains, $85,000 bonus, $112,500 withdrawn from joint savings, and the $100,000 down payment on the condo. Full audit next week. $427,500. I turned that number over in my head, not with grief, not even anger. Just a calculation. How many late nights, how many delayed bonuses it took to amass that sum. He'd been putting only $4,000 a month into the household account. I'd stretched that for mortgage, utilities, kids' tutoring, groceries, every month coming to the penny. I'd believed his income was irregular, that I should be understanding. I'd understood him for 23 years. He'd used 6 months to turn that understanding into a joke. I pocketed my phone, left the closet, went downstairs, and found the spare key tucked inside an old sneaker in the bottom of the horseshoe rack, hidden there years ago, because he was always losing his keys, and I was always the one to help. I took that key and drove off. Our house was in Ada, a suburb southeast of Michigan, about 40 minutes from Ann Arbor. The streets were quiet that morning, the neighbors' lawns were tidy, a pink bike lay on a driveway, the 5-year-old Henry girls, always abandoned mid-ride for breakfast. Everything looked normal, blue sky, scent of fresh mown grass. I headed onto the highway. Morwenna lived about half an hour away, in a new townhouse complex west of Ann Arbor. I'd found her address from her social media tags, and matched the bay window and oak branches outside with Google Street View. I parked across the street, engine running. The beige townhouse had a 3rd-floor bay window with lace curtains. Garage closed, driveway empty. I pulled out my phone and played that morning's recording. Morwenna's voice came out clear and sharp inside the quiet car. "Just say you were confused and misled. They'll go easy, then you divorce the old hag and we'll be together." I stopped the playback and watched the curtains. They moved. Someone had pulled them aside to peer out. She must have heard something, maybe from Taylor's, maybe from the company. She'd be panicking now. The smug confidence she'd shown on the phone would have curdled into fear and frantic strategizing. I could picture her pacing, phone in hand, nails digging into her palm, spinning new lies. I didn't get out. I watched for a moment, then started the engine and drove away. I had much more to do. Back home by 1 p.m. A package on the porch, brown box with a UPS label addressed to Taylor's. I left it untouched and went inside. The house felt hollow, echoing. I changed into slippers, put the morning cup in the dishwasher, and sat on the living room sofa, staring at Emily in my contacts. Emily, 20, a junior at the University of Michigan, majoring in psychology, doing a summer internship. She'd moved into an apartment near campus last month. My son Sam, 18, had just graduated and was off on a graduation road trip with friends to the West Coast, not due back until mid-August. How to tell them? One thing Taylor's and I had always agreed on: never fight in front of the kids. We called it protection. Now I think it was whitewash. For 23 years, no matter how icy our bedroom silence got, dinner was always a happy family tableau. The kids believed we were fine, that everything was fine. But truth is like a slow leak under the kitchen sink. You don't know how rotten the wood is until you tear it open. I took a deep breath and called Emily. 4 rings, then a flustered answer: Mom. I was going to call you. I just left the library. I overslept. Your voice sounds weird. Are you okay? I closed my eyes. My throat was tight, each word taking extra effort. Emily, I have something to tell you. Are you free? A moment of silence. She must have moved to a quiet spot, wind and traffic fading. Okay, Mom. What happened? I spent about 3 minutes laying it out, pared down. I skipped the exact text, Morwenna's face on the porch, the vile things she'd said. Just the core. Taylor's had had an affair, 6 months long, with a co-worker. He'd transferred money out of our marriage. I was filing for divorce with a lawyer. She and I would be fine financially. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her sniffle. Mom, her voice barely above a whisper, are you okay? My throat tightened. She hadn't asked about Dad, or the other woman, or what would happen to the family. She asked about me. I'm fine, I said, voice thicker than I'd intended. I can handle this. Are you crying? I touched my cheek, wet. No. I'm okay. You're lying. She sounded defiant, almost angry. You always say I'm okay when you're not. When you broke your wrist at 15, you showed me your cast and said I'm fine. Last winter when you had pneumonia and 100-degree fever, you said I'm fine, don't worry. You never tell us the truth, you think we can't handle it. Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. Mom, you don't have to do this alone. I'm not a kid anymore. I can come home. My fingers squeezed the phone's edge, the plastic digging into my skin. No, keep your internship. We'll talk when you get back. Okay. She agreed, but I could hear that I don't believe you in her tone. A rustling noise like she was digging through a bag. I'll call you again tonight. Promise me you'll tell me if something's wrong, no more secrets. Got it? Got it. After the call, I sat with my phone on my knee, staring at my folded hands, short nails, pale knuckles. The refrigerator hummed its low drone, just like every night for 23 years. But the house felt different, walls thinner, windows bigger, every draft from outside filtering in as if the whole structure was breathing. At 3 p.m., I went out again. To the local bank. The teller recognized me with a warm greeting, Mrs. Pratt. It's been a while. What can I do for you? I wanted to check an account. I had a debit card tied to a joint savings account that held the small surpluses I'd managed to set aside from household expenses. I rarely checked it. The balance had never exceeded $3,000. After tuition and insurance, maybe a few hundred left. But that morning, the forensic accountant's report had flagged something. Over the past 6 months, Taylor's had set up automatic transfers from that joint account, $1,000 to $2,000 at a time, under the note household adjustment. I'd never received notifications. He must have set it as a sole authorization transfer. I asked the teller to print the last 6 months' statement. She did, smiling. I took the paper to the waiting area and read each line. November 3rd, $1,200, miscellaneous, November 17th, $800, utilities, December 5th, $1,500, repairs Jan, February, March, each amount carefully off-round, disguised as routine expenses. Total, $11,000. Enough for the Gucci handbag she'd posted last month, with treat yourself, and a geotag in Detroit. I folded the statement and left. The sky was clouding over, a dark slate gray, as if something heavy was falling from above. I stood in the parking lot and looked up, feeling a softness in my chest, probably the echo of Emily's voice, her mom still in my ear like a warm light melting the ice. I drove home and sat in the driveway without getting out. I looked at the grey-blue colonial we'd lived in for 16 years, white trim, a half-dead begonia on the porch that I'd forgotten to water. I thought, that house is about to change owners. Taylor's name would come off the deed, the shell company's lake apartment would be sold back. Every dollar he'd transferred would return to my account. And the first thing I'd do is replace that begonia with something evergreen, something that could thrive without constant attention. At 7 p.m., Morwenna called again. I didn't pick up. She tried another number, twice. Then I answered, staying silent. Her breath was ragged, voice low and rapid. Are you happy now? I let her continue. HR called me in today. They're investigating dual misconduct and professional ethics violations. Did you send something to the company? What do you want, to destroy me? Her voice broke on the last line, real fear underneath. She didn't want to die, not by being fired, blacklisted, socially ostracized. Her entire identity depended on others' perceptions, job title, income, Instagram posts of brunch and luxury. Without that, she was nothing. I sent nothing. I replied calmly. You complained about Taylor's, but you forgot, when the company pulls internal emails, call logs, and attendance records, your affair won't stay hidden. She paused, then gave a short, broken laugh. You think they'll dig deep? They'll bury it to avoid scandal. As long as I deny everything and he admits to coercion. He won't. I cut her off. He heard every word you said on the phone this morning. He knows you blamed him entirely. A long silence, 5 seconds. Then her voice dropped to a low, cold hiss. So you just want revenge? You think destroying my career makes you a winner? I don't care about winning. I just want the truth out. Hypocrite. She spat the word. You and that coward husband. You pretend to be noble while wanting me dead. Taylor's never loved you, he told me. Every day with you was like chewing wax. You're dead in bed, he stayed only for the kids. He told you a lot. My voice was flat. But while he said those things, he slept in my bed, ate my cooking, and funded you from our joint account. He badmouthed me to you while depending on the stable life I built. If he really hated me that much, he'd have left. He didn't, because he needed me. Morwenna went quiet, then laughed, a brittle, forced sound. You think you're smart? He used you because you're easy, you never ask, never check, never make a scene. You were a domestic robot, and he kept you because you were convenient. You're right. I admitted, no irony. I didn't check. I trusted him, my biggest mistake. But I won't make it again. You made a mistake too, Morwenna, you underestimated me. And you'll pay for it. A crash, something ceramic or glass shattering, then her ragged breath. She'd lost control, thrown something at a wall. You'll regret this, she hissed. You'll regret it. She hung up. I placed my phone down. The house was quiet. Taylor's hadn't returned, no texts. I assumed he was at the office, in that frosted glass conference room with HR, trying to explain away emails and overlapping calendars. He'd gone to explain. But some things can't be explained. Shared appearances in a parking garage, late-night texts logged by IT, company emails routing funds to a shell account. Not one stupid mistake. He probably still didn't realize what he'd lost, not just the marriage, not just the money, not just the house, he'd lost the status of being a good person. From now on, wherever he went, that stain would follow him, an invisible scar on every resume. I felt a moment's pity for him. Just a moment. Then I texted the attorney, please start preparing alimony terms and custody documents. I want full ownership of the marital home, no buyout, no installments. 3 minutes later, okay. I pan-fried salmon with asparagus and brown rice, ate alone at the table. The scrape of utensils on porcelain felt solitary, but not sad. For the first time in 23 years, I could eat a quiet meal without hearing about his work pressures, refilling his tea, or pretending interest in golf games I didn't care about. I washed up, dried the counter, and pulled out an opened bottle of red wine, a gift from his company last Christmas, mostly untouched. I poured a glass, took it to the sofa, curled up with my phone waiting. I thought of a night years ago, Emily about 14, eavesdropping at the top of the stairs during one of our arguments. He'd been away 3 weekends in a row. I'd asked what project was so urgent. He'd thrown a bowl into the sink, shouting about trust and how his hard work was for us. I'd apologized, said I overreacted. The next morning at breakfast, Emily was quiet. In the car on the way to school, she asked, Mom, does Dad always yell at you like that? My heart had skipped. I said no, he was just tired. She was silent for a long time, then said, I don't like him doing that to you. I hadn't taken it seriously. Children don't understand adult complexities, I'd thought. Marriage needs patience. Now, sipping wine, I realized those 7 words were the only truth she'd ever spoken. At 9:15, the attorney called. He sounded pleased. Asset freeze is complete. All 6 of Taylor's bank accounts, 3 investment accounts, and the shell company account are frozen. The lake apartment is under judicial freeze as well, he can't sell or transfer it. And the company side. Morwenna's supervisor and HR held a preliminary meeting this afternoon. Based on the evidence we submitted, they've opened a formal investigation, 2 weeks. Taylor's offered a voluntary leave pending the outcome. Leave? I set down my wine, tapped my knees. His brave, I'll explain everything, had probably crumbled by 3 p.m. One more thing, the attorney added. You received an email from the Michigan Family Law and Psychological Support Center, offering counseling for divorce litigants and their children. Did you request that? No. Maybe it's automated. They mentioned your name and case number, only the court or your legal team would have that. Be cautious. Don't reply without forwarding it to me. After the call, I opened the email. It came from the official domain, signed by a licensed counselor. A prickle of caution. How did they get my case number? I didn't respond, forwarded it to my attorney, and locked the screen. The view outside was fully dark. A dog barked twice, then stopped. My reflection in the glass was a blur, home clothes, messy ponytail, wineglass in hand, just like any other Thursday night. Except no one was showering upstairs, no roast chicken scent, no text that would shatter everything. Exhaustion washed over me, as if my bones had been pressed down for years and finally allowed to let go. I curled into the sofa, knees to chest, forehead against the soft curve of my kneecaps, eyes closed. 5 minutes, maybe 30. I sank into a dark lake of quiet, my body descending deeper, cooler. Then my phone vibrated and slid off the table onto the floor. I took my time surfacing, then reached down. A text from an unknown number. You win. I quit. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Starbucks on Main Street, Ann Arbor. I'll be alone. There are things you should hear in person. No sender name. But I recognized the tone, not Morwenna, not tail-eyes. I ran through possibilities, and landed on one. I replied, "Who is this?" 2 minutes later, Catherine Heedon. Morwenna's sister. The next day at 1:50, I parked in the Ann Arbor public lot and walked to that Starbucks, between a used bookstore and a leather goods shop. The green sign stood out in the gray October sky. The door chimed, warm light and coffee steam welcomed me. She was at a window table. I recognized her immediately, similar features to Morwenna, but a different aura. Morwenna was polished in every detail, signaling success. Catherine wore a faded navy hoodie, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes, and a nearly empty latte with dried foam on the rim. I sat across from her. She met my eyes for 2 seconds, then nodded. "Thank you for coming." Her voice was lower than I'd expected, raspy. "You wanted to talk." She stared at her cup, rubbing its side. "I wanted to apologize, for her. I know it means nothing. The things she did, you deserve more than a hollow apology." She spoke slowly, as if each phrase had been chewed over. "My sister has always been that way. She takes what she wants, however she can. As kids, she stole my allowance and blamed me. In high school, she stole my boyfriend by spreading lies. At work, she climbed over colleagues. I warned her, she said that's how the world works." She paused for breath. 3 years ago, I divorced, raising my daughter alone. She never asked how we were. Last month, she called me, excited. She'd met a man with money, status, and a manageable personality, her word. She said she was slowly bleeding his family funds, and would soon get him to divorce his wife. I listened. The word manageable struck a nerve. In Morwenna's view, Tail-Eyes was manageable, I was manageable. Everything Catherine repeated matched the tone of those texts and phone calls, a deep-seated arrogance that treated people as stepping stones. I told her to stop, Catherine's voice rose. I said you'd ruin a family. She said it was already falling apart, she was just speeding it up. I said karma would get her, she laughed, said karma only hits believers. She looked up. Her grey-brown eyes reflected the cafe lights like dull amber. Yesterday, I heard the company was investigating her. She called me, hysterical, saying someone was trying to destroy her. I asked if the wife had found out. She went silent, then said, "That old hag recorded my call." Catherine gave a bitter smile. My first thought was, good. I know that sounds awful. She's my sister, but I felt relieved that someone finally stopped her. I sipped water, waiting. She continued, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just think you should know the whole picture, like the lake apartment. Tail-Eyes put in about $60,000, and 10 from your joint account, but Morwenna also used 40 grand of her savings, which she got him to repay as compensation in cash. No paper trail. So that cash is in her possession now. Catherine nodded. In her townhouse. Last month I saw a showbox with at least 30,000 in cash. She panicked, told me not to tell anyone, called it her emergency fund. I filed that information away, a new lead. Thank you. She shook her head. Don't thank me. I didn't come to plead for her. I just wanted someone to know the truth. She's lied to so many people, at least one person should see through it. She checked her watch and stood. I have to pick up my daughter from preschool. Take care. After she left, I sat by the window for another 10 minutes, watching pedestrians, a young mother with a stroller, smiling down at her baby. I remembered Emily as a baby, sitting on the front porch swing, making up silly fairy tales, her eyes sparkling like tiny stars. I left the coffee untouched and walked out, the bell chiming once. In the cool October wind, I zipped my jacket and walked back along Main Street. I passed a flower shop with ivy and potholes in the window. I stopped, went in, and bought a small ivy plant. The old shopkeeper wrapped it in brown paper. This is easy, just water, it'll thrive without much fuss. That's exactly what I need, I said. Back in the car, I got a text from Emily. Mom, I talked to Dad. He told me everything, about the lawsuit and frozen accounts, about how he can't face you. He said he doesn't want a divorce, that he can still fix it. I just asked him, do you remember when you yelled at Mom in the kitchen and smashed a bowl when I was 13? I said I didn't like him doing that to you. He said he remembered. I said, do you think I like what you've done now? A second message. He was quiet a long time. Finally he said, your mother is right, and hung up. I think he really knows he messed up. But I'm on your side, Mom. I stared at the screen, my nose suddenly stinging. Outside, Ann Arbor's streets were filled with reddening maples. A leaf drifted onto my windshield, stuck for a moment, then was swept away. I leaned back, closed my eyes. The ivy sat in the passenger seat, water droplets catching the dim light like bits of morning rain. 3 mornings later, I received the court summons. Taylor had been officially served with divorce papers. He had 30 days to respond. The same day, the Lake Apartments management confirmed the freeze, all access suspended. I read both emails twice, then brewed coffee. While the machine hummed, I heard the front door lock turn. Taylor came back. His blue shirt was wrinkled, untucked, collar open. He looked thinner than I remembered. He paused at the mat, looked down at his shoes, then bent and unlatched them, placing them on the lowest rack. 23 years of habit. Even at his lowest, he followed that routine. He walked into the living room, where I sat with my coffee on the sofa. He stopped across from me, not sitting. His hands hung at his sides, fingers curling uncertainly. I got the summons. His voice was dry, his lips were chapped. Is this really what you want? He took a step forward, then hesitated. Melwyn, I know I'm wrong, dead wrong. I've been thinking these 3 days, when did I become this person? I can't find the start. It was a slow slide, and by the time I noticed, I was on a track that led nowhere good. I held my coffee, not drinking, letting it warm my hands. You had 6 months to stop. I know. He pressed a hand to his forehead, white knuckles. Every time I drove to that apartment, every time I transferred money, every time she texted, I told myself, this is the last. But when she reached out again, I went. I told myself she was forcing me, but that was a lie. I went because I wanted to. He looked up, his blue eyes were bloodshot, red-rimmed. Remember when we were young? I used to say you were the one person who really knew me. Then at some point, I started to fear being known. Because I knew I wasn't good enough. I did ugly things, and I hid them. I built a wall between the dirty version of me and the clean one you saw. I told myself I was protecting you, but I was really protecting myself, protecting the image you had of me. His words came slowly, as if navigating an unfamiliar path. In 23 years, I'd never heard him talk this way. He didn't do self-reflection, didn't admit fault, didn't like being vulnerable. But now he stood there, shoulders sagging, stripped of defenses. Did you love her? I asked. He paused, then shook his head slowly. I don't know. I thought I did. For a while, I mistook the thrill for love. But when she called and said she'd reported me to HR, I saw clearly. She never loved me, she just wanted what I had. Being with her was exhausting, always proving my worth, always giving more. With you, I never thought about that. With you, I could just sit and be myself. And I lost that. I was too stupid to see its value. He ran his hands through his hair, pressing hard. I know it's too late. I'm not asking you to call off the divorce. I know you've already filed. I just needed to say this. If I don't, I'll carry an unhealed knot forever. I watched the coffee's surface, the fine sediment swirling. Are you done? He looked up, eyes wetter. Yeah. Good. I set the cup down with a soft clink. I have a few questions, answer honestly. 1. Besides the lake apartment, did you jointly acquire any other property or major assets? He shook his head. No, only the apartment. Her name was never on any deed. She asked to add it. I didn't agree. 2. All the transfers from our joint account, did you make them yourself through online banking? Any third-party accounts involved? He closed his eyes, recalling the numbers. Most were direct. 2 larger ones, about 20,000 and 15,000. I routed through a separate investment account first, then withdrew cash for her. 3. I met his eyes. All your communication records, including deleted ones, can they be recovered? He was silent a moment. The company IT has backup of all server-side emails. 4 texts. I changed phones, the old one still in my drawer, not wiped. I nodded. Thank you. That helps. He gave a tired, wry smile. I know you're using this for the case. But I answered anyway. Maybe I just wanted, for once before the end, to tell you the truth. He turned to the hall, stopped at the shoe rack without changing shoes, back to me. His shoulders heaved twice, then he pulled out his keys and jingled them lightly. I've rented a short-term place near the office. I won't be staying here. If you need me to sign anything, just text, I'll come by. He opened the door, cool air blew in, rustling the ivy on the entry table. He walked out, the door clicked shut. Silence. I sat on the sofa, staring at my cold coffee, feeling warmth behind my eyes, not tears forming, but a melting somewhere deep. He'd used the phrase before the end. He'd accepted it. 23 years of marriage officially ended when he said the end. No bargaining, no one more chance. He told the truth, then walked out. I poured the cold coffee down the sink, rinsed the cup, and went upstairs. I opened the lowest drawer in the closet, where 2 photo albums sat, one from our wedding, one of the kids growing up. I took out the wedding album and opened to the first page. He stood on the church steps in a tailored charcoal suit, white rose in his pocket, looking back at me with a mix of reserve and bright hope. He was so young then, hair thicker, smile full of promise. We'd stood on a clean, bright road, expecting nothing but sunshine. I looked at the photo, then closed the album. I didn't hate him, that surprised me. I'd expected anger at his lies, his theft, his shared glance with Morwenna on the porch. But when he stripped himself bare and admitted, "I went because I wanted to," the hatred lost its anchor. What I resented was not his weakness, but the years he made me believe in something unbreakable, only to break it. Now that he'd broken it, he'd set me free from illusion. I texted my attorney, regarding alimony and asset division, be as generous as allowed. He's cooperated with important evidence that helps recover assets. Ease up, we can afford a little leniency. A few minutes later, the reply, understood. Reason for change. I typed, deleted, retyped. He did one thing right at the end. The following 2 weeks stretched like a taut rubber band. I kept a steady rhythm, up at 6:30, simple breakfast, emails, calls with lawyers and financial advisor, noon walk along the Maple Line Street, afternoons with paperwork, evenings cooking, eating alone, reading. Taylor's belongings trickled away, clothes one day, books and files the next, his winter coat the third. He came when I was out, we avoided each other, like ships altering course. On Tuesday of the 3rd week, I received the mandatory mediation notice, scheduled for November 15th, 3 weeks out. That same evening, Morwenna's termination letter arrived from her company. The attorney's note, internal investigation found misuse of position, false accusations, and conflict of interest. Your recording was not used as evidence, but she admitted to some facts in the interview. It was recorded as a valid statement. Morwenna lost. I read the email and closed it without emotion. She'd been doomed the moment she set foot on my porch. Some things can be won by scheming, but stealing someone's life isn't one of them. Stolen goods always have to be returned, with interest. That night I slept early. At some point my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, "I'm fired. No job. Rent due. Taylor's blocked me. Are you satisfied? You destroyed my life. You think you're innocent. You sat in that big house, waiting for everything to be handed to you. You never fought for anything, you just happened to land a man who'd support you. Now you have nothing. Nothing at all." I read it twice, didn't reply, silenced the phone, and went back to sleep. Moonlight crept through the curtain gap, falling as a silver strip on my pillow. I closed my eyes and let my breath carry me. In the morning, the text was buried under newer messages. I didn't open it. The last week of November, I did something I'd postponed. I booked a counseling session. The idea had been circling since that mysterious email. I chose a private therapist instead. Her office was on the 2nd floor of an old building, windows facing a massive oak tree shedding its rust-brown leaves. She was about 50, grey curls, wire-rimmed glasses, gentle voice. Her first question, "How have you been feeling?"